Good morning.
Good morning, Christy. Hi, everybody. It is, I don't even know what day it is. It is Tuesday, September 12th. I just drank my coffee before the meeting started. So I apologize for any attitude I give for the rest of the meeting because I'm out of coffee. You are at Public Health and Safety. This is the place to be. I see Council Member Angela Jefferson. I did see Council Member Peter Agabi. Now he's back. Nice to see you all. So that is our call to order. We are present. I see staff. I see Christy Peters. It's always a pleasure to see her face. We are now on to item number, before I do that, any changes to the agenda? Seeing no one care, we the agenda. Thank you, Chief Wiggs, for your face. I do have two additional items to just ask a question about in the end if we have time regarding school resource officers and code enforcement. So seeing nothing else, item number 3, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes for Public Health and Safety Committee meeting July 11, 2023.
So moved. This is Angela.
Thank you, Angela. Peter, do I have a second? Don't tease me, Peter.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. I have a motion from Angela, a second from Peter to approve the meeting minutes from Public Health and Safety Committee meeting July 11, 2023. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. Now to the meat of this meeting. We are going to get an update from Thurston County Prosecutor, the update. And so we have Christy Peters here. And then normally we like to Karen to give a really great introduction with music and a theme to welcome Christy, but Karen is just not feeling it today. So we're just going to dive right into Christy, knowing next time Karen will have a whole production to welcome Christy. Christy, what's been happening? It's been a while since we've seen you.
I love it. I'm going to have to start bringing music as my intro next time. I didn't realize that Tumwater was so,
I mean,
you guys are ahead.
That's what we do.
So I did send a very short PowerPoint that I thought would be helpful just to guide our conversation this morning yesterday. Karen, were you or Charlene able to load that for today?
I did not undertake that. Can you just share your screen?
Yeah, let me do that then. Hold on just a sec. I have to apologize. 90% of what I use, or 95%, is Teams. And so I'm a Zoom participant, but not usually a Zoom leader. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that.
There's zero judgment.
View? Where do I share my screen? Oh, here it is. Bottom right. I get it. Here we go.
Christy, actually, you're welcome for this opportunity to refresh your skills on Zoom.
I know we're all about MS Teams at the county. I'm just telling you. So let me know if you see this now.
We see it.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay, so Tumwater criminal prosecution update. Let me just briefly go to what I thought I'd touch base on. This is based on Karen's insight of what was your interest, but I'm happy to answer any other questions as well. I'm going to give the update of statistics of cases for Tumwater that we've handled in our office for all of 2022 and up through June 30th of 2023. That's the most current that I can give you right now. If you need more current statistics like through the summer, I'm happy to do that and send that to you and send you an update down the road. The other issue that Karen said was of interest to this committee is to give you an idea of what's happening post State versus Blake. This is the UPCS cases, the new gross misdemeanor law that came in. Spoiler alert, not much, but could be more coming down the road. We'll get into that then. Then I just wanted to remind everybody and give you an overview of all of the different alternative criminal justice options in Thurston County, of which Tumwater cases are 100% a part of and screened every day to see if the defendants of Tumwater cases are eligible for those. We are always looking for options to get individuals that I'll borrow John Thunheim's words, that are hurting themselves more than they're hurting others out of the criminal justice system, so we can focus our more limited resources in the traditional criminal justice as the individuals that need traditional criminal justice. And Angela's become quite a resource on other law and justice committees, so she probably can speak to that as well. And then I just open up to questions, anything else. So does that sound good to everybody? And please, raise your hand. I can't see everyone on the screen if there's any questions during. Let's just jump right in. 2022 Tumwater criminal case statistics. We received, and I divided it up by domestic violence and non-domestic violence. I think everyone on this panel and on this meeting knows that our domestic violence cases are much more time intensive. We have victim advocates assigned to every victim of a case that comes into the office. We do individual interviews on all of those cases. We are really trying to, especially on the misdemeanor domestic violence cases, hopefully get services, address the issues so that they don't escalate and we don't see them down the road as more serious domestic violence cases. But it's pretty, the numbers, so we see, 480 cases overall that were received. But I think it's important to note, and you may notice that the amount of cases charged, just to give everybody a background, typically pre-pandemic across the country, across the United States, across the state of Washington, and certainly our county was no exception, roughly 2/3 of cases that are referred or arrested are charged. So think in your mind, a normal world would be 66%, no matter where. And that's just, that statistic is, I mean, sometimes it's 65, sometimes it's 70. But if you look at across years and years, that's typical. And I mentioned that so you kind of have a baseline of what we're looking at now, because we're really trying to look at only, a higher bar of charging, making sure we really are looking at the individuals that need to be held accountable, that we can't look at maybe a pre-diversion alternative, something like LEAD, where they get services even before they come into the criminal justice system. So I want you to think about that kind of world that we're really looking at, which is pretty consistent. So our non-DV charged were 65% in 22. Only 30% of the domestic violence cases were charged. There are not only alternatives for those, but also if we determine that we don't have enough information to successfully prosecute that individual beyond a reasonable doubt, we're not going to charge it. And so those are really what we're looking at. And so the total charge cases is a little lower than that 66% number, 57%. Moving to 2023, see about the same number. We're probably going to be higher. We're probably going to be about 20% higher overall in 2023. Right now, we're on pace to be about 20% more cases. Chief Wicks probably is seeing the same. The cases received and then what we charged. So the domestic violence cases so far this year, according to this statistic, I would read that as we've got better cases as far as evidence and those types of things. So we're charging now over 50% of those cases. But again, it's all, case by case specific determinative. Before I move on to Blake, does anyone have questions regarding the statistics or anything that I've just shown you?
I see Angela has unmuted.
Yes, Christy, it looks like it's 29% received. So do you see those cases going up a lot?
When you see 29% received, which number are you talking about?
The 259 and 215. So the cases non-DV versus received.
Right. On 22 or 23?
On 23.
Okay. So total so far through June 30th, we've received 274 cases. So we're on pace to receive about 550 cases, right? Although I typically will have sometimes more cases in the second half of the year because there's more holiday, more people are inside more, those types of things. There's just a lot of demographics. So if I were, making a good estimate, I would say we're probably going to look at like 600 cases for 2023 received, which is an uptick from 2022. As far as the cases charged, overall, right now, we've charged 50%. We're charging about 50%, which is, as I indicated, we're screening much closer. We're looking at alternatives. So that would be my answer, I think, to that.
Okay, so that has been identified. Thank you, Christy.
Sure. Anything else before I move on to Blake?
Peter, did you have anything? I see you're unmuted.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. State v. Blake, and I apologize if my font is too small. I hope it's legible. I usually complain, but I was trying to get it on one side. So on the left column, I'm just kind of giving a very broad reminder or review of the history of State v. Blake. The Supreme Court for the state of Washington in February 2021 essentially made the ruling in the State v. Blake case that UPCS, unlawful possession of a controlled substance, which formerly was a felony in the state of Washington, was no longer a crime. So there was a lot of changes. We went through all of our cases. Anyone that was in custody in the Thurston County Jail the day the case came out, we screened to see if they were only being held in custody because of an unlawful possession controlled substance. At that time, we had approximately 250 individuals in the jail, and we had one person that was being held only on UPCS. That person was released. Our county was very different from many other counties in the state of Washington in that many other counties had many more individuals with only UPCS. And I am being very careful when I say that because there are many individuals that are arrested for robbery and UPCS, rape and UPCS, etc. So those, if they had another felony that they were being held on, they were not treated any differently. We just dropped the UPCS charge pursuant to the new law. So moving forward, the legislature, discussed amongst themselves for months, a little over a year, to decide in 2023 to pass what was now a gross misdemeanor for unlawful possession of controlled substance, although that did not go into effect until August of this year. So even though the legislature met and made this new law and agreed on this new law, which was then passed and signed off by Governor Inslee, didn't go into effect until August. So I'm speaking to you now on September 12th, and we really don't have a good gauge because we've just got, it's so early to tell, right? Because this law just came into effect as far as the gross misdemeanor and what all the other law enforcement agencies are doing. And I'll defer, Chief Wicks can tell you much more about what's happening on the ground level from law enforcement. I can only share what we're seeing from referrals and arrests in our side, in the prosecution side. So our office to date has received 5 UPCS referrals and warrants. That is, well, unless somebody was arrested last night. So by 5 p.m. yesterday, we had 5 cases. None of the 5 were only on an unlawful possession controlled substance. They all had some other crime with them. They had other outstanding warrants and a UPCS for multiple different things. I don't know if this is interesting or not, but so far out of those 5 cases, 2 were from Tumwater. So 40% of our UPCS cases at this point are Tumwater. I am certain that number will change down the road, and I am happy to provide Karen or Lietta or whoever needs additional information down the road if you want like a 6-month view, a 12-month view, that type of thing. Because right now I just think it's too early to tell. But just to give everybody an idea of what we're doing with the, on the right-hand, oops, sorry, apologize. On the right-hand column, this is the process. So this is what you can have as far as the defendants are picked up on the warrant with other crimes. As I indicated, they are booked on the UPCS, which is that gross misdemeanor. They're booked in district court because it's now a gross misdemeanor, not a felony. We review all of the cases to see if it's appropriate for a referral to lead, to get them out of the traditional criminal justice system. Law enforcement assisted diversion would be referring them to a treatment provider, other support services to get them back on track. Maybe, obviously these are people that we're not looking at sex offenders, extreme violent offenders. We're looking at the individuals that are substance abuse is their primary reason, and that's why they're stealing a car or breaking in to get money for to fund their habit. Those are the individuals that we're trying to look for. So if we screen, this is before they've even been arraigned. Okay, so they've just been booked. We're looking at them that day that they get booked. Then a lead representative will go into the jail, meets with the defendant prior to court to see if they are interested in the lead alternative. And if they are, and they screen in, if they agree to follow up with whatever their discussion is for evaluation treatment program. And it's a little different for each individual because they're trying to make it it's not a one size fit all. People need different resources and services. If that all happens, then the arraignment's waived. So then they don't even traditionally get arraigned and go into the system. I put the dates on the left-hand column of the 2 Tumwater cases to let you know that September 5th and September 11th, these are very, very new. And so they are in that process right now of being screened and talked. They have not, neither the 2 Tumwater individuals are deciding whether or not they want to go into lead right now. So they have not been arraigned. Let's see next. Okay, and then prior to the next hearing, we're updated, the prosecutor's office, if the term is engaged. If that individual, the defendant, wants to participate in lead and they're engaged, then we dismiss the case. And
Christy, Yes, I have a question for you. Is it too early to know what the recidivism rate for lead is? What's our success rate? Or
yeah, they are working on getting statistics, but I do think you're right. I am not an expert on the statistics of lead. I know that they are tracking everything, but I know that that's going to certainly be a factor because you bring up a great point. When someone now gets arrested on a warrant and a UPCS, have they already been given an opportunity for lead? That's certainly something that they're going to be looking at to see whether or not that person, it didn't work. I mean, it's not a automatic that they don't get in an opportunity to go into lead if they've had an opportunity before and failed, right? But it could be a factor if it's a continual pattern, right?
Right.
And we're going to look at that in connection with what other charges they have. How dangerous is this individual to the public, right? Because if they're more dangerous to the public and they've been, they're escalating what their other charges are or crimes are, they have firearms, they're doing, super serious felony assaults. That's not someone that we're going to be engaged in and want to approve for lead. But maybe there might be there might be someone who's low level offending that gets an opportunity to go into lead, even if they were not successful the first time.
Right. And some who are doing low level crimes, breaking and entering or breaking into cars, and we see it happening at Home Depot, just that, so we're looking at that. Okay. Thank you, Christy.
Yeah. But that's a great question. I will find out more. I know that maybe this is a good opportunity for me just to remind this group. I think last year we told you that our office had just received a large national grant for a data dashboard. And I know Angela's probably updated you more on it, but we are now in the process of downloading all of our data into that dashboard. It's about a 5-month process. We started in September, early, like a week or so ago. And so my understanding is by January or February, we should have at least most of our current updated and then going forward. So we're really looking forward to that. The lead information should be part of that data dashboard as well. And then, of course, I guess the last bullet is that other charges for the warrant, of course, are not affected by this. We are really looking at UPCS as the primary target for lead or other alternative options. Any questions on Blake?
I do have a question, Peter. So for someone who was assessed for lead and he is going to lead, what resources do we have relating to mental health within the county?
Good question. BHR is providing some. There is not enough by any means, but and then there are also some other providers as well that they're using. Obviously it depends on the individual. Do they qualify for Medicaid? Are they, there's going to be, depending on different levels of what they qualify for, there might be additional services that they would be able to incorporate in, as you point out. Yes, substance abuse is not alone. We see a lot of substance abuse and mental health abuse at the same time, connected. And but one thing that I can share, I guess the positive of that is Thurston County, actually, for our population, while we don't have enough services for everyone, we have more services per capita than many other counties in the state of Washington. We are actually very fortunate. We have a lot of good community partners. It's really just everyone is trying to work really hard to figure out the right system, and it's all happening very, very fast, very quickly, right? Because the law just came into effect this year, started in August. A lot of community partners have different federal grant systems, state grant systems on what they can and cannot serve and their level of ability. But one thing that we are able to do is we, are fortunate. We have our treatment sales tax. There is still ample funding in treatment sales tax for different services that sometimes can, connect and touch with some of these individuals that we're talking about in LEAD as well. For both, and treatment sales tax can provide mental health as well as substance abuse services.
One thing I would add to that too is the courts also have the mental health. So LEAD is just one option. They also have a mental health court. So if the mental health was a leading issue or concern, that would be another option for Christy's office to go down.
It's almost like Chief Wicks knows what my next slide is. I didn't send it to you ahead of time. I'll just use that opportunity to move on to alternatives to traditional criminal justice. Now, the key in this is to remember when I said in LEAD that we are making that decision before the individual is arraigned. Now, if the individual is arraigned, like they say, oh, I don't think I can do that, or they don't screen in for LEAD, or they don't seem like they're appropriate for whatever reason, and they are arraigned and go, even if they are arraigned and go into the beginning of the traditional justice system, arraignment means you're setting a trial date, you're setting an omnibus date, you're looking for either resolving the case with a guilty plea and sentence or going to trial. But during that time period, we are now looking, the second kind of screening is looking at, is this individual appropriate for mental health court? Is this individual appropriate for our drug or DUI court? Is the substance abuse addiction based on alcohol or something where they're continuing to get DUIs? Is the individual a veteran? Or do they qualify for veterans court? Is it a PTSD connected relation to, is PTSD the driver and the nexus to the behavior, the substance abuse, the criminal behavior, the mental health, et cetera? There's many different options. And then, in juvenile court, anyone under 18, we have the behavioral health alternatives option, and that incorporates both substance abuse and mental health abuse for juveniles together as a holistic approach. And then I don't want anyone to forget that we have also diversion. We can look at diversion, which is, again, admitting to the crime, but not sentencing. We have pretrial services monitoring and checking in with them. This might be an individual that maybe does not screen in entirely for a mental health court or substance abuse. Clearly there's some use, but maybe not in the level of addiction that needs to screen in, but they don't have a job, or they dropped out of school, or that type of thing. The diversion process can be very flexible, and we can say, okay, if you stay crime-free for 12 months and you get a job and, go to your AA meetings or whatever, and then check in, we we will drop the case at the end of that time period. And that's at the discretion of our office. And it's very flexible. We can send individuals, go to the resource hub here in Thurston County, which has multiple agencies on site to help individuals with, oh, I need to get back with DSHS to figure out, why I'm not getting my medical, or, whatever it is. There's just a lot of different options with diversion is a very flexible option for that. And then, of course, LEAD, because we talked about LEAD. So that, I just wanted to remind everyone, I should say, I know that most of you are probably savvy enough to say, well, most DUIs, until you get to the felony DUI level, where you have the 3 DUIs in less than, the time period to make it a felony, would be a district court case, because your first and second DUIs are going to be gross misdemeanors. Even in that respect, if someone qualifies and screens in for a DUI court, we will still move their case, even though it's a district court DUI, could actually be moved into Superior Court, because we have our drug court and DUI court handled together in Superior Court. Likewise, we will consider down filing a felony if the person's appropriate for Veterans Court or mental health court to be handled in district court. So it could be like an assault 3, but then we'll down file it so that it can be incorporated. And if they're successful, then it won't go back up to a felony.
Christy, I had a holistic question
Sure.
regarding these alternatives and just the whole process in the system, those touch points. In that dashboard and downloading the data, is there any circling back of what's working well for our community members who are having these experiences? And like, where does that fit into like modifying, updating, circling back?
Well, what I can tell you is all of the programs that you see on the screen right now regarding alternatives to different criminal justice have different dates, different longevity. They've been in effect. So the longest by far is drug court, right? We've had drug court for over 20 years in Thurston County. So the history and the statistics and the recidivism numbers are by far the best for drug court, because you've got the most data. And then it kind of goes down the aisle as far as mental health court. Well, LEAD is at the bottom, and we have the least amount of data. It's the newest program.
Right.
So yes, that is something that we are hoping to show the difference. That what we can do, our dashboard would be able to grab some of that data from drug court, but if you want to get really into the details on that, specifically one of the courts, I'd encourage you to invite one of the leads from those courts. Sabrina Craig from the drug court, DUI court. She could give you a whole bunch of information. Drug court not only has really good data on recidivism for graduates, or lack of recidivism, meaning that they've, that it's worked. They've even parceled it so much that they can show now, and don't quote me on this, but it's something like if someone completes 75 or 80%, maybe they fail towards the end, but don't graduate. Even those individuals, they can show, have a much lower recidivism than someone who never participated in drug court from the beginning. So they really do have a lot of good information about how successful their programs are. Same mental health court and veterans court do too. Theirs is about 10 years old, roughly, as far as the time period that they've been active in Thurston County. The behavioral health alternatives is newer, but I want to say 4 or 5 years here. And then diversion has had many, many different formats because it's so flexible. So that's but the pretrial services, you can get some of the diversion statistics on the TST data dashboard that they have, and that's on the Thurston County Treatment Sales Tax. Diversion, that pretrial services monitors is part of that. And so they have their data right there too.
Thank you, Christy.
Mm-hmm. So that gets me to my final topic, but I did touch base, and I apologize on behalf of Mr. Thunheim. John is actually prosecuting a homicide case right now and is deep in trial today, so he wasn't able to be here, but I did check in with him last night and said, anything else you want me to share with the good people of Tumwater? And he said, just you can reiterate that our biggest challenge, and this is not going to be a surprise to any of you, is our current recruitment and retention. We are, the county, our deputy prosecutors and our line staff right now, who are both unionized, do not have contracts since December 31st of 2022. And they're still, they're actually, I think both of those groups are going into mediation. We have lost several attorneys and staff to state, to other cities, to other counties, because our compensation is not competitive right now. Two of our newest attorneys that we were able to hire actually took pay cuts to come here, but they really like our office, which is great. But that is our biggest challenge. Right now, we have 28 FTEs for criminal prosecution in the office, and we have 20 filled. So we have 8 vacancies of that. So about 30%, a little more than 30% of vacancy. And that number was actually worse until Friday. We had 3 of our Rule 9s actually passed the bar on Friday, and we expedited their swearing in, and Judge Wilson swore them in yesterday. And so we were at 17. We were at a 40% vacancy as of Friday, but now we're at a 30% vacancy because we were able to add 3 attorneys yesterday based on their swearing in. So that is the biggest challenge. And you know, that's where we are.
Thank you, Christy. Angela, I see you have unmuted.
No, I just wanted to let you know at this point that we are working together at the Law and Justice Council to update our mission and our vision. And we have 4 goals. Goal number 1, prioritize community safety while preventing entry into, deeper involvement in, or return to the criminal justice system. Goal number 2 is to identify and eliminate disparities in our criminal justice system. Goal number 3 is to build trust in the criminal justice system among the public, community organizations, and participating agencies. And goal number 4 is to use data and evidence-based practices to build a more effective and efficient criminal justice system. So we are working. We are going to have panels, focus groups. We're going to have surveys. So this is in the near term. So we are working this together to make our communities safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Peter, do you have anything for Christy before she leaves us and actually gets to doing her job?
So, given your inadequate staff currently, how would you describe your representation for those who cannot afford to have their own personal attorney?
Okay, I'm sorry, our approach to, what was the last part you said?
So I want a brief description of your approach to someone who's unable to hire their own attorney, given your staff shortage right now.
Okay, well, I can't give you the exact numbers, but I can tell you it's well over 90% are provided, of the defendants are provided a public defender. Higher percentage in Superior Court than in District Court, simply because there are more individuals that typically are arrested, but with either assault 4DV or DUI, that actually are able to hire their own attorney. But the court is very good about making sure they screen every individual, and the majority, great majority, I mean, it's like I said, it's got to be 90% plus, have a public defender assigned to their case. There are caseload caps in the state of Washington for public defenders. They can only represent X amount. I want to say it in district court, I think it's 375 individuals over an entire year. So the public defense office is very good about, Patrick O'Connor's office is very good about tracking that. And when they look like they're getting close to what their monthly cap is for their defense attorneys, they hire private attorneys as contract, but they're actually hired as public defenders. So at no expense to the defendant.
Thank you.
Anything else for Christy from Angela, Peter, or anyone else on this call? I don't know why I asked that because I can't see anyone. So, but Angela, you unmuted again.
No, just to thank Christy. Thank you very much for your service to our community, Christy.
Of course, I love meeting with the people, good people of Tumwater. And Angela, it has truly been a pleasure to work with you on the strategic planning committee, because I didn't know you very well before that, and it's great to have your input. Love it. And if again, Liata, I can send you, or actually I think I have sent it to Karen, but I can send it again, the PowerPoint, if that helps with the numbers, so that you can just have that in your files or whatnot, if that's helpful. And then I'm absolutely happy to give updates on numbers down the road if that's something that would interest this committee.
The slides should be on, you actually should have the slides, or they are on their way to you if you don't have them in your mailbox yet. And I think that we will probably look to schedule another presentation in about 6 months, and we can get an update on the data then, if that suits the committee.
Yeah, I would like that. I would like to strengthen those threads of the touch points with our courts and what our police are seeing and experiencing on the streets, right? And our policies, right? And I know Dr. Bowers is doing all that research in our database in Tumwater. So I'd like to have discussions, like you said, Karen, of how those come together and what we're seeing and what services are needed and what's working and what could be better in Tumwater. So thank you.
We do, excuse me, in response to Councilmember Gabi's question, we do also have a contract with Public Defense, and we can certainly arrange for them to come and give an update as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think I just saw nods from Angela and Peter. So yes, please. And Karen's gone. Thank you so much. Christy, appreciate your time as always, and we look forward to seeing you and continuing working with you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Item number 5, the interlocal agreement with Lewis County for use of jail facilities, amendment number 3. Chief Wicks, what do you want from us today?
I would like you to repeat that so I don't have to. Good morning, council members. What you have in front of you this morning is the interlocal agreement with Lewis County for the use of jail facilities, amendment number 3. This is something we bring back to you each year. And if you recall, back in mid-2020, we began contracting with the Lewis County Jail as an alternate jail to the Nisqually Jail. Unfortunately, during that time, they haven't been open for business for the most part, so we have never used that facility. However, our intent is to continue to maintain the contract. So what is in front of you today is the contract, as you see, has a yearly rate adjustment. What we're asking is authorization today to move this forward, to accept the yearly adjustment, and also to change the process. One of the things we saw in the contract is that actually the contract has a mechanism for adjusting this without bringing it in front of the council each year. So we're asking approval from the council to move, or from the Public Health and Safety Committee, to move this to the council for approval of amendment number 3, and also authorization for myself to be able to approve the yearly rate changes as they come in from Lewis County each year.
Thank you, Chief. Peter, Angela, do you have any questions for Chief Wicks before I ask mine? Good, Peter? Pretty straightforward?
No.
Okay. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Thank you, both of you. Chief, the one question I had is, when I read this, I was like, wait, I remember this. Did we ever use them? And then thank you for reminding us that we couldn't use them. But I know in the past you had talked about services, right? So looking at the example in the packet of services with Lewis, it talks about medical, psychiatric, and dental. And in the past, you talk about Nisqually actually added more services, like for medicated assisted treatment. So is that something that's on the list for Lewis, or are there striking differences between services provided in both jails?
Actually, when we first, back in 2020, there was big differences.
Right?
In that time, Nisqually has upped their game to equal what Lewis County is providing.
So they're comparable. So what would be, could you give us a scenario of why you would choose one jail over another?
The biggest reason originally was because of the pending Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals case. I don't remember which court it was in Washington, about whether municipalities could contract with tribal jails.
Right.
That was the leading thing that led us down that road. And we obviously didn't want to get in a position where we didn't have a jail if the court ruling came back. But then COVID brought that kind of to a halt, and it hasn't come back up yet. And again, the services have improved dramatically. So
if anyone asked us, we're just having additional options. The services are comparable, the prices are comparable. So this is just making sure that we are covered if an incident happens, that we have somewhere to take whoever is arrested.
correct.
Okay, pretty straightforward. So I'm looking for a motion to forward amendment number 3 to the agreement for use of jail facilities in Lewis County to the City Council, with a recommendation for approval and for the authorization for the Chief of Police to approve and implement future yearly daily bed rate adjustments as used in the process set forth in the agreement. That is a very long motion.
So move. This is Angela.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Angela, second from Peter. Any discussion on that very wordy but nicely put together motion? Seeing no facial expressions, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. So it's 8:42, and I had talked to Chief Wicks before this meeting about 2 things that came up, and asking him and for Administrator Parks to figure out the best way to bring these subjects to council. One is regarding school resource officers in Tumwater. We have 2. New school year, are there new goals or priorities for our school resource officers, right? And I asked that because there have been 2 recent incidences with a neighboring jurisdiction, right? So the question came up was, what does that look like for our school resource officers? And what are their goals, priorities, and what are they seeing in this new school year? So wondering if that should come to public health and safety, or could that be a work session? Leave that up to Chief Wicks and his noggin and what's best. But I think it would be good for us to be reminded of the resources and what's happening in our community. The second one is code enforcement and that process. Angela and I received an email a month ago regarding code enforcement issues of parking, right? And so getting a reminder, and then Karen reminded me of the reminder that we're going through that process of code enforcement and the legalities and that whole thing. So it's going to be a multi-piece, maybe not multi-year, but lengthy. So what does that look like for an update through public health and safety when we get constituents emailing about things? And to remind us, and a reminder to our community, that sometimes bureaucracy is a challenge, but there's a reason why we have a process and engagement and transparency. So those are the 2 things that have come up, asking Chief Wicks to figure out with Administrator Parks how those subjects are brought to council. Angela and Peter, do you feel comfortable with those 2 topics, SROs and code enforcement, and getting updates?
Yes. SROs is in safety.
Right? Okay. So Chief Weeks, did I ramble enough for you to figure out what we want to be reminded of?
Yes, I'm clear on that, and I'll talk to City Administrator Parks and see when we can put something on the schedule. Really, for the school resource officer, we'll probably, my guess, we would be shooting for November or December. That way the SROs can get a couple months into the school year, get a feel for what the climate is in the schools after a first couple of months, and be able to better answer maybe some of your questions.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thanks, Chief Wicks.
So,
Go
Leila,
ahead, Peter. Yeah.
remind me again why we are going to be discussing SRO, because I thought we have a contract with them.
Right. Thank you for the question, Peter. Not to go over the contract, but when things come in the headlines, right? And then I get questions about, well, what is Tumwater doing versus a neighboring jurisdiction, right? And it's always a good reminder of we are neighboring jurisdictions, right? And there's different cultures. So a different school board in a different area has different processes and procedures. And so when we get questions, I think it's a good reminder for what Tumwater does and the services being provided in our school district, right? And there's, you know, I talk about like bumpers in your when you're bowling, right? I think I need bumpers when I bowl. So when we have school district versus city of Tumwater, there are different roles and responsibilities. And so SROs is this like overlapping area where the city is providing police officers to a school district, but what can we control as council members when we're supposed to be doing policy, right? So I think it's a good reminder of when things are happening in other areas, a reminder of what is different and what Tumwater is doing. And I think it would be beneficial with a new school year, what goals that they have. What are they seeing? What are they doing? And how does that translate to school work, school district work, and the services and utilities that Tumwater provides? Did that make sense, Peter?
So if I remember correctly, when we were talking about the contract, one of the things that came up was at least an example or a pattern or a database or some kind of a scenario that shows the pattern of what type of activities that it was looking at each of the schools that would lead to an SRO getting involved.
Right.
So now, if I'm hearing you correctly, maybe I'm just hearing this sideways. You want us to be able, at least policy-wise, to tell anybody that asks the question what the SROs are doing within our school district, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's more of the mental health and mental challenges that our kids in the schools are facing now. Mental health is increasing, drug use and drug abuse is increasing. So how is that impacting our SROs? How are we focused on keeping our kids safe? Because this kid that was identified, happened to be one that was on the radar screen. So how are our SROs focused on that to prevent a school shooting or to prevent a violent incident of happening in our schools?
So thank you, Angela. Peter, to answer your question, it's both of that. It's what Angela said next, and then what the lens I'm using in this scenario right now with public health and safety is, what does that look like for our policies with SROs and the services they're providing, right? Does that mean, will Chief Wicks come back to us like in the budget amendment and say, we need more training on this. We need our officers trained on this. So would that be a budget element, right? For public health and safety to review. So knowing that there are many things happening in our community and always remembering our role with public health and safety and our role as a council member, right? Our fiduciary responsibilities. What does that look like? And also knowing that it's complicated and complex and there's other factors that we might not have control over, but how could we support other entities, other nonprofits providing those services, right? So it always comes back to, what is our role of public health and safety? How do we define that? And how do we support our departments and our first responders in our community? So it's layered. So yes and yes. And I just don't want to lose this discussion and lose those touch points of what are police officers seeing and what support do they need? And will it come up that our youth need different support? So is that data that our school board members could use, right? I just want to keep those connections going, strengthening them. And I don't want to lose this opportunity to have these discussions. So that's why I brought this up, if that makes sense to everybody.
I just don't want to embark on a wise schools chase where we don't have any tangible in terms of concrete, I guess you could say, achievement of what we could do to address this to address whatever we think is
Right.
wrong.
Noted. Data driven will be our focus. That's why we have Dr. Bowers, who's our data guru. So not lost, Peter. Great point. Always a great reminder. Data driven decisions. Anything else for the good of the order? Or
Just one,
go ahead, Chief.
I just wanted to bring one thing to the committee's attention. You will see next, in the next council meeting or the one after it, we're hoping to get it on the consent agenda. If you recall that we've been working on replacing our records management system across the consortium. That means all the law enforcement agencies in the county. It's just that Tumwater PD leads the consortium, so that's why it's in our court. Anyway, we have a contract ready, prepared, and reviewed by Karen for the program management. This is a company we're hiring to run and do the selection and contract process for a successful bidder. You'll see that coming directly to the council in either the next meeting or the one after it. So just wanted to make you aware of that and what it was.
Perfect. Thanks, Chief. Any additional items? Any additional questions? Anything anyone would like to share on this Tuesday? I know I will see all your faces just a few hours for our council work session. So if nothing else, thank you for your time. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your dedication to our city. Meeting adjourned at 8:52.
Thank you.